Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Be a Friend Friday. It's a lovely Friday. The sun is out, Sydney's out, and I'm jealous. The weather has been amazing. We have now entered springtime, and it means more sunshine, more positivity, and a lot of empowerment. And in light of empowerment, um, happy Women's History Month. I mean, the month of women, what better month of the year is there than to celebrate women and their hard work, their passion, their drive, their hearts, their minds, their soul. And I'm so thrilled to have Sydney with us here. Sydney, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sydney Williams. Thank you for having us, Dana. Having us, me, myself, and I. Oh, it's been a day. My name is Sydney Williams. I'm the author and founder of Hiking My Feelings. We are a nonprofit organization that introduces people to the healing power of nature in an effort to improve community health. We are just stoked about life in general these days. It feels like there's a breath of fresh air and some hope in the air with the vaccines and everything else that's starting to unfold here in 2021. So excited to celebrate Women's History Month with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And you said a key word that I think is really fitting to kick off this discussion, which is healing. So, for me, I think when I think of women, I think they are healers. And I would love to learn more. I mean, first of all, tell us a little bit about your journey. For those of you who are just tuning in, Sydney is quite a popular member of the diabetes community. She's so inspirational, and we've actually gone live with her before. So this is like a nice little catch up. I haven't spoken to her in a while, but please, like, let us know a little bit about your journey, your diabetes journey, and then maybe we can dive into what it means to be a woman.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in September 2017. And I think as it pertains to being a woman and just in general, I say that I'm grateful for diabetes and I have since I was diagnosed. Once I got over the initial shock of the diagnosis, I was like, oh, this is an opportunity to really take care of myself and get in touch with my body. Um, oh my Lord, we are just so sunny today. I'm like, how do I get, here we go. Okay. I have always been really grateful for the diagnosis just because it really helped me get back in touch with my body. I experienced a sexual assault in college and it absolutely just like wrecked my life for 11 years. I was eating everything in sight. I was drinking a lot to numb the pain, and those behaviors certainly probably contributed to my diagnosis. But diabetes was kind of like the last red flag that my body was throwing up to get my attention. I had been having panic attacks for years. And in the lead up to my diagnosis, the panic attacks were really, really frequent. And my body was just like a place that I did not ever want to go. And I live here. This is my vessel through this planet. And it really helped me get back in touch with my body, which as a woman, I think is a really interesting way to approach this disease and to like understand our lives in the framework of living with diabetes. Um, because, you know, we're taught from the second we can see ourselves in a mirror that we need to look a certain way or fit into a certain box or, you know, behave a certain way. And I think that diabetes really gave me an opportunity and a framework with which to learn how to love my body, even though it wasn't really performing in the way that I would prefer. I mean, I think when it comes to diabetes, I don't know anybody who's like stoked to have it. So while I'm grateful for it, I would much rather live without it. Yeah, I think just as far as my journey goes, it's been a really interesting way to find healing. And I had tried so many other ways to just try to get through and move through the different pain and trauma I've experienced. And diabetes in the management of this disease really helped me get in touch with that and start to work through the different like symptoms that were presenting in my body and the different ways that I thought about my body, because now I had to pay attention. It was a health thing. It wasn't vanity. It wasn't um, any other reason for me to take good care of myself other than I want to live as long as I can. And I want to live a wonderful, happy, healthy, vibrant, active life while living with diabetes.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, everybody's got their own, how do I say, like driving force behind their healing journey, and also maybe what contributes to the diagnosis, and everyone's is unique. And um, I'm curious to know, did you maybe have growing up female or yeah, like female role models or like powerful women in your life that you now being on the other side and creating this vibrant life that you lead, look back and say, wow, I don't think I could have done it without these women.
I think unfortunately for me, no. There weren't a lot of strong women in my life. Like I really enjoyed spending time with my one of my aunts. Like she lived about an hour from us, and she was where we went to go have slumber parties, you know, away from home and do arts and crafts and stuff like that. And I'm thankful for those experiences. But when I think of healing and the woman I am today, I'm kind of a cycle breaker in that there's a history of trauma in our family,
Mm.
specifically with sexual violence and other kinds of generational trauma. And I'm the first person who's putting in the work to heal from that. And so I'm every day when I wake up, like my mission in life is just to kind of be the person that I needed when I was younger. So my journey is mostly selfish because I've got a lot of healing to do and it's never done. But through the creation of this organization and the community that I lead, um, it's really about just creating those resources and those opportunities for people to talk about the stuff that is difficult and normalizing talking about pain and stuff like that, because as humans in general, it's not generally a conversation that is welcome, but
Mm.
especially as women, like we're supposed to keep that stuff to ourselves. So it's been a really interesting experience moving through that and creating community around it.
I think you touched on a really good point in that, we often, especially this month for Women's History Month, you think about how does a woman experience diabetes versus a man, right? And a lot of it is quite emotional. You need that support system. You need to be able to open yourself up and talk about the pain that you're feeling, or sometimes maybe it's loneliness. I know diabetes can be a lonely disease. And so, what maybe avenues have you taken, aside from creating your organization, maybe personal habits that you've created, or maybe you have your own network now that you reach out to whenever you're not feeling so great, or maybe not. What has been working for you?
Well, when I was initially diagnosed, so my entire life, and I think this is kind of a trait of women in general, but also just humans. I think I've been looking for external validation since I could breathe. So when I was diagnosed, that was actually one of the first times where I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do? I'm not going to listen to everybody else, because if you go into any of the forums, a quick Google search, like there are 9 million different opinions on how to manage this disease, and I did not want to overwhelm myself with the opinions of other people. Like, yes, I listened to my doctor. Yes, I went to diabetes education classes at the hospital, and I had like an idea of what I needed to do to manage this disease effectively. But in essence, I took it upon myself to do that. And so I completely disconnected from everything, from social media, from all of the possible places where I could be influenced one way or another. The first month after my diagnosis, and I really just like dug deep into like my own journey with diabetes and figured out what works for me, because that's the thing. Like there's so many different types of diabetes, and everybody's experience with this disease is different, that everybody who is giving advice, it's all well intentioned. We have a program that offers tips and tricks for how to live with diabetes in a mindful, healthy way. There's endless resources, and everybody's out here sharing because they want people to have a good life. But ultimately, it was my life and my journey. So I had to really carve out some space where I could do this on my own for myself.
Mhm.
But once I got to that and I was like, okay, I figured out a system that works for me, then I was more open to joining communities and finding different areas where I could start to talk to other people with diabetes, because it is important. To your point, like it's a very isolating disease, and I'm blessed. Like my husband, when I got diagnosed, he jumped straight into everything that I was doing for my diabetes management protocol. Like he switched up his diet too. He started walking more. He was singing every time it was time for me to take my medicine. He's like, it's time to take your medicine. And it was
Oh,
awesome. Like I had the best support ever. And that is such a key component of living with and managing this disease. It's hard to do if your family isn't all the way on board with the changes that you're making. So for me, finding community was important, but not until I had established something for myself first.
That's amazing, and I'm so happy for you that you have that kind of support. That's really, really important, and, I it makes me curious as well. Did you feel, whether it be with friends and family or for whatever environment you were in, wherever you were, did you feel this kind of pressure maybe to have it all together all the time? Or did you feel comfortable from the get-go to just, "Oh, I'm feeling low today," or "I don't feel good, I can't go out today," or like, "I can't eat that today," or, did you feel like you always had to have it together? Because like you said, like for us women, we always have to be like on our A game, have it together. Like, no, we're not allowed to have flaws apparently. So yeah. So did you feel that way at all?
Yeah, and I mean, I built from the outside looking in prior to my diabetes diagnosis, and even still today, if you don't know me and you don't know my story, you'd be like, wow, she's really got it together. Like I built a life and stitched together an appearance that I did have it all together. And outside looking in, you're like, wow, she's got a successful career. She's happily married. Like life is grand. But that doesn't always paint the whole picture. And I live out loud. Like I share my struggles. I lead with my struggles. I lead with the dark and twisty stuff because frankly, I don't have time to wait and see if you'll stick around if you don't like that part of me, because so many people are uncomfortable with people that talk about pain openly because then it makes them look at their own pain. And
Mm,
so for me, this whole journey has really just been about getting super clear on what I need and what's the best for me, because when I do what's best for me, everybody else around me benefits. And that's something that as women is super important to remember. Like you've heard the saying, you can't pour for an empty cup. You We are like socially conditioned to put everybody else's needs first, and diabetes was my opportunity to be like, no, this is my time. Like I need to manage my life, I need to make these decisions. So yeah, I mean, like there's always that pressure, but i I don't give into it anymore. I don't allow that to be my story because I just don't have time to wear that mask and to
mm,
pretend like everything's fine, because when we do that, and I built a great life out of doing that, we're not acknowledging the part of the human experience that is so universally understood, which is like the difficult part, because you don't get the highlight reel. You can't
mhm,
appreciate the highlight reel without having the really hard stuff too. And
mhm,
so one of the things that I'm really passionate about is like, once we start treating mental health, and specifically like the conversation around mental health as it pertains to diabetes, once we start treating that with as much urgency and tenacity as we do the physical symptoms, taking our medicine, getting insulin, all that stuff, when we address the mental health as much as we do the physical health, it'll be a completely different experience living with this disease and then just as a human race in general.
mhm. I think, well, first of all, kudos to you for doing what a lot of people find to be very uncomfortable and very scary, especially on social media. I mean, you have quite the community on social media, and again, like you said, it's like a highlight reel. Everyone just wants to see the best of the best, and it can be really uncomfortable for a lot of people. But in a way, you're filtering out the people that are not meant for you by being authentically you and by leading that life of healing and wanting to be better and do better. And if you're not feeling so great, you're not feeling so great. Like it's just
And that's fine. That's
exactly.
It's totally okay to not feel awesome. And in fact, like on the days where I'm just like, I don't got it,
Mhm,
I used to not share if I didn't have something positive or uplifting or something to say. And I'm like, that does nobody a service. Like if we keep all of this hard stuff to ourselves, like when we talk about the things that are difficult, especially as it pertains to diabetes management, then we can find community in that. And I'm not saying like we have to like stay bonded in our struggle, because that's not healthy either, but we
mhm,
all have so much more in common than we are different if
mhm,
we just give ourselves the opportunity to talk about the hardest things that we've ever been through. Because like Dana, the hardest day of your life and the hardest day of my life are probably radically different, but
mhm,
we're still here to talk about it. And that's at least one thing we have in common. And then we can go from there. And that's a really nice way to find community and common ground. And healing is a deeply personal journey. And I'm responsible for my healing, you're responsible for yours, but that doesn't mean we have to do it alone. Like you have to do it for yourself, and a lot of the times by yourself, but it's best done in community with other people that are healing. So you know that you're not alone. Like it's really easy to get swept up in all the hard stuff if you feel like you're the only person who's experiencing that. And I think that's one of the most beneficial things about being in the diabetes community is just knowing that, like, I mean, there's 122 million Americans that live with this disease, type 1, type 2, and others. Like, that's a lot of humans. There are a lot of people that you have something in common with. And to talk about like the anxiety around food and the anxiety around, like, I'm not on insulin. I don't live with type 1. I have type 2, but like, and I'm managed by a sweet nutrition plan and hiking as much. I mean, the layers just keep adding on the more this disease progresses. And what I'm interested in learning more about is like the relationship between chronic stress and chronic illness. Like if we start talking about the things that stress us out, we naturally relieve some of that stress, because the stress of keeping it all in and appearing to have it all together is almost as bad as the stuff that's stressing us out to begin with. So it's just like stress on top of stress. And when we talk about it, it's like a weight is just lifted off your shoulders. And a community of people with diabetes can really help get through those really hard times where you just don't feel good, where you feel low, and it's not even about your blood sugar. You just feel like low.
No, you're just truly amazing. And you know what I've realized is that people really won't talk about what they go through until somebody else brings it up first. So like if you post on your story and then next thing you know, like 10 people are DMing you being like, oh my God, me too. And I'm just like, oh, where have you been? Like we're all in this together. But I think that's really great. And I agree. I think what's amazing is that yes, our struggles do bring us together, and it's important that we all remember that we all go through bad times, but within that you find healing, and within that you realize like, okay, we've all been here together, but we can all get through this as well. And like there's light, and we can also celebrate the good times, because we deserve to celebrate the good times, especially
yes.
this pandemic. Oh my goodness.
And that's so important. And like for one, like I learned early, and I don't know where I picked it up. It could have been a movie, could have been TV, could have been my sister, could have been my family, who knows. But I learned early, and it stuck, that if I celebrate, I'm bragging. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like nobody likes a girl who likes herself that much. And that is the biggest load of BS I've ever heard in my life. Like we have to rise above this need to be like the coy one, and we're going to be discovered, and like Prince Charming is going to come save us. Like movies are movies. Like, and for some people that does happen. I mean, my husband's a prince. I met him when I was learning how to jump out of planes. So it's a little bit different, but like we can't continue this ideal that if we are just like not, if we don't talk about, and I keep saying this, I feel like I'm like a broken record, but like if we don't talk about these things, then we just sit here in perpetuity suffering. And in a global pandemic where millions of people are still unemployed, millions of people are homeless, lots of people like don't know where their next meal is going to come from. People like, I've been rationing test strips since I lost my insurance in 2018. Like I've got like one bottle left, and it's just like there's so many barriers that we face every day as people with diabetes. And one of the most important things to remember is like a lot of this is systemic. Like I don't control drug prices. I don't control insurance prices. I don't control the price of food. What I can control is myself and my reactions to the things that are presented to me. But especially when it comes to type 2, like the stigma around type 2 in particular, like I'm 30, how old am I now? I'm going to be 36 this year. I never remember. I'm 35 right now. For all intents and purposes, like I'm a young person who got diagnosed with type 2, and I didn't know what to do with that. And I think as a woman living with type 2 and in this world, it's really hard to celebrate because we're taught not to. Like you got to like keep it quiet, and you don't want to be full of yourself. Like celebrating is how we get through things like a global pandemic. We've got to like grab onto anything that's good and run with it. My husband said, so like I have had a hard time. We're getting ready to leave on this tour that we're doing for Take a Hike Diabetes for our campaign this year. And I've had a really hard time getting excited about it because we left to go on tour last year. We were a weekend of my book tour when COVID hit. And this retreat that we're finally hosting, starts today, was the first thing that got postponed last year. And I was just like, I don't know if I can make it through this again, I've been having a really hard time getting excited about it. And historically, over the course of my life, it's like things are really, 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 really awesome. And then something really bad happens. And then it's really, 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 really awesome. And then something bad happens. And so for a long time, I was like, oh my God, what else can go wrong? Right? Like that's a natural thing. You're just kind of trying to like prepare yourself and protect yourself from pain. But the other day, my husband and I, like, we've been on a hot streak at Hiking My Feelings. Like, we're a nonprofit, we're winning grants, we're signing partners, we've got sponsors, like, things are happening. All of our hard work over the last 3 years, it's finally starting to click. And my husband looked at me and he was like, what else could go right today? And I was like, like, it took my breath away because for so long, because for so long I've been asking myself, like, oh my God, what else could go wrong? And like bracing for impact and holding my breath and like protecting myself from pain. And my husband was like, no, like, what else could go right? And I was like, Barry, that's my husband. I was like, you just like rocked my world with that. And so now every day when we wake up, he always asks me if I'm ready to have a great day, which if you don't already ask yourself that first thing in the morning, it will change your perspective entirely. But with this, like, what else could go right today? I'm just like, there's always going to be stuff that sucks, and life is hard. Being a human is difficult. This country, there is a lot going on. Social justice issues, diabetes access issues, like the list goes on and on and on and on. Health equity, everything. There's always going to be something negative to focus on. And you can do that, but I'm wondering, because we're so good at focusing on what's negative and protecting us from the pain, is that one of the reasons why we have such a huge diabetes epidemic in this country? Because we don't celebrate. Like, if we allow ourselves to celebrate and focus on positive things, not saying good vibes only and that there's nothing bad going on in the world, but allowing ourselves the moment to just be like, oh my God, I had a really nice day. And tomorrow might totally blow. It could just be the worst day ever. But right now, in this moment, I'm going to sit with how awesome things are. If we give ourselves the time to do that, and then we do that every day, you get in this habit, and it's not ignoring the bad stuff, but it's acknowledging that there is good in a world that feels deeply cruel sometimes.
I think, as it relates to women, especially, I think there's like this disconnect between the way that men celebrate and the way that women do. Men, I mean, when something great happens, they call the boys, they're going out, they're like, let's go out and hit the town, we're celebrating. It could be something as small as like winning a football game, like something so small. And if a woman does that, it's almost like, whoa, too much. Like we like that saying, a woman who doesn't know she's beautiful is more beautiful, which I think is ridiculous. It's like, why wouldn't you want someone who's so confident and knows that she's beautiful? Like, it's just crazy. But all this to say, I agree with you, and I think it's much needed. I know we have a few minutes left, so I wanted to ask you a final question. It might be a difficult one, it might not be, but I'm interested to see what you have to say. What is your favorite thing, or some of your favorite things about being a woman, more specifically, being you?
I mean, wow, that is a great question. And I think I've just arrived at this knowing, and I don't know if it's like it's an age thing or like whenever you start your healing, because some people start healing from things faster than I did. But my favorite thing now is just like sitting in the power, knowing like what is possible, and what women are capable of, and finding community in that, and really just celebrating as much as I possibly can with the women that come into our space. Like, our community is primarily women. Men are always welcome. People of all genders are welcome in our community. But right now, because we started by talking about the mind-body connection, and in particular trauma, specifically sexual assault, a lot of people that gravitate towards that are women because they've experienced that. Like 1 in 3 women will experience sexual assault before they leave this planet. So like, that's where we start to have the conversation, and that's where people are coming from. And I think celebrating, seeing women not only claim the things that they've been through, but also just become deeply, deeply in touch with their bodies as a result of doing this work, their spirit, seeing them shine their light as bright as they possibly can. That's one of the most rewarding experiences for me as a woman, to facilitate that space where that is possible. And every time that I feel like, oh, I'm probably being a little extra today, or this is too much, or whatever, like, I used to really tamp it down and dull my shine. To your point about the like, a girl that doesn't know she's beautiful is more beautiful. Like, I rocked that. I was like, oh, well, if I pretend that I'm not like amazing, then maybe somebody will discover how amazing I am. That's not how it works. Like, I don't prescribe to that anymore. So now I'm just like, this is me. This is what I'm living with. If you jive with it, awesome. Let's be buddies. If you don't, keep scrolling. There's plenty of other fish in the sea. Lots of other people you can be friends with, other communities you can join. But I think truly, like, my favorite part, I don't even think about whether it's my favorite part of being a woman or just my favorite part of being human. It's just like, I'm really excited to be on this planet, in this body, even living with this disease. Like, if I had to redo everything that got me to where I am today, including the assault, including this diagnosis, I would, because this is why I'm here, is to just like show that it's possible to be grateful for a chronic illness and learn how to navigate life in new, healthy, happy, mindful ways. Because that's all, like, that's our only job. Like, everything else out there is like, it's manufactured to keep us busy and distracted. Ultimately, all we need to do is like be here, be kind, and like just shine as bright as we can, so other people have permission to do the same, because that's how this works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think we all get so lost in the hustle and the bustle of conforming to what society thinks we should do, what our parents think we should do, how we should act. But I think just being authentically and unapologetically yourself, especially as a woman in this day and age, is so, so, so important. And once you step into that power, I mean, there's absolutely no stopping you. It's just up from
it's fun to watch. Like, outside looking in, I'm like, oh, because I mean, I've been thinking, especially because like we have this retreat coming up this weekend on Catalina Island, is where like all of my dots started connecting. It was after my diagnosis. That's where Hiking My Feelings like became a thing. And it's just so fun to look back. And like, if anybody is like looking for a way to maybe kind of shift their perspective, like, take a minute and realize, like, we call it a trail of life map. It's one of the exercises we do in our program. But like, literally, if you want to like draw a trail and then like make note of all the things you've been through, like all the hard stuff you've survived, but also all the stuff that you should be celebrating. Because we're really good at skipping right over the good stuff because we're always looking for what's next, or we're uncomfortable celebrating and sitting with that happiness. So if you just take a piece of paper and like draw a trail, or make a bulleted list, or write a song, or whatever, we call it Trail of Life. And if you just think about like all the stuff you've been through, like, do that this weekend. It's the last weekend of Women's History Month. Like, think about all the stuff that you've experienced as a person on this planet, as a woman, and like give yourself a pat on the back. Because if you're watching this, if you hear me give you this homework, then you're still here. Like, there's so much goodness out there in the world yet to be seen. And when we give ourselves the chance to reflect on all the things that we've been through, it makes it a lot easier to like stand a little taller and like stand in our truth. And when we start to own these things, that's when life gets really interesting.
100%. Thank you so much for saying that. It's literally always like goosebumps every time you speak. So, but I know we have to wrap things up. Otherwise, I would literally be sitting here like talking to you all day. You already know. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've mentioned it a couple times, but we are, as a community, Hiking My Feelings, our initiative this year is called Take a Hike Diabetes. And we're on a mission to hike 1,000,000 miles together as a community for diabetes awareness. So if anybody wants to learn more about that, you can go to hikingmyfeelings.org/diabetes. And there you'll find we have a free 30-day program that offers tips and tricks and just ways to build healthy habits. And then we also have the 1,000,000 Mile Challenge, which we are encouraging people to go out. You can hike, you can walk, you can run, you can roll if you're in a wheelchair. We want this to be as inclusive as possible for people of all abilities. We're not picky about what a hike means. We just want you to get out and experience the healing power of nature. And then the tour that I mentioned, we're showcasing different urban outdoor adventures to show that you don't have to travel really far to experience the healing power of nature. You can find it in the cities where you work, live, and play. So if you live in Chicago, Michigan, or Washington, D.C., I'd love to see you on the road or on the trail, because we're coming to those towns this year to show what it's like to be able to recreate. And you don't have to go all the way out to like a state park or a national park. You can just walk through your town and really get connected, because nature is where I was able to find deep healing. Like I wasn't listening to podcasts. I wasn't listening to audiobooks. I wasn't scrolling through social media. It was just like me, the earth under my feet, and the sounds of the world around me. And in those spaces where we are able to disconnect from the distractions and reconnect with ourselves, deep, deep healing is possible.
100%. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Sydney, for everything. Every time you speak, it's incredible. And on a Friday as well, to just kick off the weekend with all this positivity and light. Thank you for closing Women's History Month with us. This is incredible. Please, everybody that's watching, I hope you all benefit from this. If there's anything I've learned today, it's to just allow yourself to be happy and allow yourself to enjoy whatever it is that you feel you want to enjoy, because you deserve it. You're here, you're alive,
Yes.
you're here. So thank you, Sydney. You're amazing. And I will definitely probably have you back at some point soon.
Please do. Yes. And I hope we can connect when we're up in the DC area, because I know a lot of the team is up there. So thank you so much for having me. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And everybody that joined us today, thank you.
Thank you.